Good morning, everybody, and welcome to today's On the Sofa. We're very honoured to have Danny Wilson with us, and he's going to be talking to Vic about his book and life at Swindon. I'm sure will come up as well. So let's get started. Let's bring Vic on. Good morning, Vic.
Very good morning to you, Chris. I hope you are well on this very strange Tuesday morning event, but looking forward to it greatly.
We're not used to doing it this time, are we?
We're not, no. Some of us are barely up, but never mind.
And it's only a few minutes since I left you last time for the last one. So, yeah, so there you go. Okay, so without further ado, let's get Danny on. There we go.
Hi there.
Hiya. Hi. Right, I will leave you any comments that come through. I'll pass through. So please leave them in the comments on Facebook or Twitter or YouTube, and we will put them through to Danny. So I will see you later.
Chris, thanks very much indeed. Danny, great pleasure to see you again after your time at Swindon. We'll no doubt talk about that a little later, but I got to congratulate you on this. I am reading through it as quickly as possible. I got it on Saturday, so I've read as many chapters as possible in the intervening time. So apologies if I miss out bits of it. But I wanted to start really with your upbringing, because your family upbringing seems to have played a great part in the way you live your life, and your parents had a great influence on you, didn't they?
Yes, they did, Vic. I am nice to meet you, Vic, again.
And you.
Yes. Yeah, they had a major influence. I think my upbringing was paramount in all walks of life, like most people would suggest. You know, they taught me the rights and wrongs of certain things, and obviously the way that you respect other people and adults as well. And I think you take that into the rest of your life. It just so happened that I went into the field of football, and but I do feel it helped me a great deal. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, you know, times were quite hard, as a lot of families are facing these days, aren't they? Where, you know, money was tight, and your dad worked really hard for you, didn't he?
Well, he did. You know, I mean, saying that I didn't really see much of him is a bit of a exaggeration, really. But because he was back home, maybe late afternoon, we'd have his dinner. You know, maybe have an hour with us and whatever, back to bed again, and getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning, and that was his routine every day. You know, Sundays included. So it was very difficult, you know, and but he had this work ethic that, you know, he wanted to put food on the table for us, and that's what he had to do. And he never moaned about it. He just got on with it, and, you know, and did the best of it he could. And if he had any spare time, then he would spend it with us.
Yeah, I think a lot of us will relate to that from years gone by. Now, football, of course, always played a very important part for you in your life, but so did music. I was intrigued to read that you're a bit of a Northern soul person, and I'm trying to picture Danny Wilson in a pair of baggy trousers and a jacket. Tell us about the jacket.
The Barathea with the gold braiding round.
Yeah.
I think most kids particularly in that era, and my area in particular, that you know, crave for one of those. And my mum managed to get a Barathea or a blazer second hand, and my friend's mum, Brian Barton and Alan Barton's mother, she put the braiding on for me, and whenever I possibly could wear it, I did. You know, whether even when I was walking around the streets, sometimes can be cool. But being only 14 or 15 then, it was it was frowned upon a little bit. But yeah, but that's what we all wore. You know, the baggies, like you say, and they weren't very long in them for me. That they're like a pair of shorts for most people. But yeah, they were great days, and I've got lots of vivid memories about that with my mates, and going to the Wigan Casino, and you know, listening to this up and coming music that people were starting to buy in bulk. You know, and from America, and one of my close friends was a fantastic connoisseur of them. So yeah, he did it very well. Learned me a great deal about music.
Yeah, you're from Wigan, of course, and wow, Wigan Casino, world famous for its all-nighters. Did you go to the all-nighters?
Well, they weren't all-nighters for me, really, because I was a bit young, but I did well to even get in. But if I say it was like a third of the night, that would be about right for me, rather than all-nighters. I'd be back home for 10, 11 o'clock, something like that, 12 o'clock, midnight, latest, really. I wasn't allowed out till overnight.
There's a lovely story about your bathroom window. Can you tell us about that at 3 o'clock in the morning?
Well, just touching on really what I said before about my father getting up early morning and obviously going to work. It'd be very quiet around the house. He didn't put lights on. Didn't want to, to wake anybody up. But I'd been out for the night, and it was a Saturday night. I got back late, and I had no front door key. I had no key at all. Then it wasn't given to me. So I decided to take a running jump and went over the top of the coal shed, which was a flat roof, where I could always climb in through the toilet window, which was always open. Only small one, very small window, and I decided that was the way I was going to get back in. And unfortunately, my dad was sat there doing his daily duty.
Fabulous, incredible.
Breaking in and giving me a punch on the face.
Brilliant. Now, football, of course, came into your life quite early, I think, didn't it? So tell us how that came about.
Well, yeah, it did. I was never really scouted. I was very fortunate to be in a team where we had one or two very good young players as well. And one in particular was a guy called Gary Dickens, who was a centre forward, a little bit older than myself, but he was attracting a lot of attention. And I was in the same team as him, and there's a 7 club, little place outside of Wigan, place called Ince, and they came to watch him there. But I was playing. I must have done something to impress one or two of them, because he kept the tabs on me. From there, I went on to Wigan when they were playing in the Northern Premier League, and again, very fortunate to be in the team at a young age. And I think that in itself as well, attracts attention. And it went from there. And Bury, who've been watching me at the 7 club, continued their interest. And when I did play for Wigan, they came and wanted to sign me, which was a fairly easy thing to do really at that time, because I wasn't under contract with anybody. Still only, 16, 15, 16. And it was just very easy for Bury to come in and say, we'd like to take it into the professional game. And that's how it's happened.
Yeah, I hate to mention a certain Bury game at Swindon once. You might well remember it. An 8-0 defeat for Bury. Can you remember that one?
I can always remember those. I've had a few of those in my time. I do. Yes, I think if I'm saying I remember, I can't remember the scores. I think one of my teammates to play later on in with Bury was Sandy Rowlands. I think he might have notched that day, if I'm right.
Yeah, it was in between two Swindon's games against Arsenal in the League Cup, and unfortunately you met them on the Saturday when, they were in rather good form, shall we say, just ahead of the replay against Arsenal. So, yeah. I
couldn't even say it was a lucky 8. It was a well-deserved. Could have been more, I
think. You went to Sunderland as well, didn't you? A time when Sunderland had a fabulous team. Of course, they won the FA Cup in '73. What was the Sunderland experience like for you?
Well, yeah, like you said, in '73, I was 13 years old. I was a young lad at school, going up on school holidays like most kids do. This affiliated to professional clubs, and from Sunderland to Wigan from Sunderland is a big distance. And I'd never been as far as that in my life, and so it was a bit, how can I say, scary at times. And then when you go up to Sunderland, and particularly if you go to watch the first team. There's like 40,000 people watching the first team every week. It's very, very, very scary in that respect, thinking that one day maybe with a bit of luck you'd be there. But we never really, apart from watching the first team when we went up, we'd make sure we were there at weekends. But we didn't really have much to do with the professional side of it then. We were on trial. We were with the kids. Arthur Cox actually was one of the coaches of one of the young ones. Martin Harvey was another guy who was one of the coaches you may have not heard of though, but they were the ones who were looking after younger lads. So in that respect, it was great. We had very good coaches, but we were nowhere near the first team at that time. But just going up there, the experience was brilliant. But that was only like 3 or 4 times, 5 times a year maybe.
I mean, I know you wouldn't have been as a 13, 14-year-old soaking all these experiences in and using in later life, but it must have had some sort of impact on you in terms of how you deal with the situation a little bit later on when you became a manager. I mean, I guess you're soaking all this stuff in, are you?
Well, yeah, listen, it's something that you're dreaming of, at the same time as trying to enjoy yourself. You want to have that dream that's going to come true, that one day you maybe, stepping out in stadiums like Roker Park, which it was at the time. So yeah, I mean, it was brilliant. You know, we met first team players. We had to clean the boots at times, which was not a difficult thing to do. You know, and we got to talking to quite a few of the lads up there, the likes of Billy Kerr and Horsfield and people like that. Dave Watson, who was just England centre half at the time. So to have been near them at that time was a fantastic experience. And like I say, you just wanted one day that, you know, if you keep your fingers crossed and work hard, you never know. And that's how we looked at it, you know, in those particular years.
Well, you certainly did work hard, and you certainly did make it. I mean, once you actually made it as a pro, money was never your sort of primary object, was it? It was to play football and to become a professional footballer. Is that from your family background, the fact that money wasn't the be all and end all, it was what you wanted to achieve?
Well, I'd like to think that in that respect, yeah. I mean, I never chased the dollar, so to speak. Every time that I had a move or moved to a different club, it always seemed to be stepping up the ladder, you know, and stepping up in the professional side of it, not the money side of it. In the professional side is another level. So I always felt that was the way I wanted to go, and you know, I'd generally go in, and the club would offer me whatever my contract was going to be, and I'd accept it virtually, you know, all the time. And you know, they was, I just thought, if that's the going rate, I'll take it. So there was never any sitting down. I didn't have an agent, you know, I didn't have anybody look after me at the time. You know, right or wrong, I don't know, but I quite enjoyed, you know, the fact that I could sit in front of chairmen or managers and, you know, and have a little bit of a debate about, you know, what I think I deserve. But that very rarely happened. You know, it was mostly accepted that, you know, what the club were there, they want to offer me, I accepted it, and that's how it was. So the money thing never came into it, but the fact that you were stepping up to another level, you know, whether it be non-league to league football, 1, 2, 3, you know, Premiership, whatever it may be, you know, that's all I wanted to do. That's all I could see myself, you know, trying to better myself and not really looking at the money side of it.
Yeah, there's a lovely story in the book about Brian Clough and 350 or 400 quid.
Yeah,
there's an expletive or two in there, which we'll probably leave out. But tell us that story.
Well, it's a long one, and like I say in the book, it explains it better in the book, really. But basically, it showed me around the stadium, came back in and said, I was at Chesterfield at the time. You know, do you want to come and sign for my club, or would you like to go back to Chesterfield? And because if you do, we're offering you £350. If you want £400, you're going back. And so I virtually said the 350, thank you very much. And then he just said, thanks for that, because you were going back if you didn't accept it, but you can have your 400 quid anyway. So, it goes a bit deeper into that as that's the gist of it.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, I've got questions coming in regarding the Swindon time, which we'll get to in a little while. But I wanted to talk to you about your playing career, obviously, in Sheffield Wednesday. And there are a lot of Swindon links in the Sheffield Wednesday team that went on to achieve quite a bit. I mean, 3 cup finals, obviously 2 of them sadly losing, but the League Cup final against Manchester United. And questions have come in about that. If I can just find it, I'll get to it. But what are your memories of that time at Hillsborough as a player?
They were fantastic, obviously. I mean, I joined them when they'd just been relegated from the old First Division, the Premier League, into the Championship. And with the squad that they had, it was quite a bit of a shock to everybody. None more so than Ron Atkinson himself. And I think what they wanted to do was bounce back as soon as they possibly could. And I think Ron kept a lot of the team together. Plus, he added a lot of experience to it, and I was one of those. I think I was one of the eldest ones and the eldest player that Ron had ever signed. You know, at 30 years old, then 29, 30 years old. So, they were great years, and thankfully, you know, we did bounce back. But in that period of being in the First Division, trying to get back into the Premier League, we had a very good cup runs, and the cup run was against Man United, which was Big Ron's ex-team as well. So massive game for us and complete underdogs.
Yeah, this is a question from John, actually. can you ask a question about how good that League Cup final win against Manchester United was in 91? And what was Big Ron like? Also, a few Swindon connections in starting 11 himself. Phil King, of course. John Sheridan, who's recently been manager at Swindon, as you know. I mean, it seemed to me, from talking to Phil King over the years, that was a side with an extraordinary team spirit. Is that fair to say?
Oh, right. Without a shadow of a doubt. You know, I wouldn't say the dressing room on itself, because everybody needs a manager. Every team needs a manager, but it could run itself. It was a very, very highly experienced team. Dressing room with some terrific young players that are on the fringes just coming through as well. But you know, you mentioned two boys there. You mentioned Kingy. What a character he was in the dressing room. But what a good player as well. You know, a terrific left foot, as you well know, you Swindon fans. And he and Nigel Worthington on that left hand side were electric. They read each other's game so well, and they were one of the strongest parts of the team in that respect. And then you got John Sheridan, who for me is one of the finest passers in English football at that time. And so yeah, they had a very good side, and you know, when beating Manchester United goes to prove, you know, that, you know, we had a quality team on the day. It was maybe our day. We had a few let-offs as well. With our goalkeeper Chris Turner pulled off 2 unbelievable saves. But that's how cup football goes, isn't it? You know, you ride your luck a little bit, but against Manchester United, you know, any result against them is going to be a good one, and to beat them in a cup final was absolutely astonishing, really.
Great goal by John Sheridan, if I remember rightly.
Yes, he was. Right-footed strike from about 25 yards. I think everybody saw the goal but didn't realise how hard he was hitting it until he heard on the microphone on the post it rebounding off the post and going in. And it absolutely rattled the post, you know, the power that he put behind it. But with John as well, the accuracy was always there as well. And, you know, like I say, he was a top player. Now,
forgive me for skipping on a bit, but 24 caps for Northern Ireland as well. Can you explain how a boy from Wigan ends up playing for Northern Ireland?
It's this accent that does it, isn't it? It was on my mother's side. My mum's from Derry, and at the time I'd been asked before, I knew they were inquiring about, you know, what my background was, knowing that there was some Irish part of my family, but not knowing what it was. And in those days, if you were on your father's side, then you were allowed to play for Northern Ireland, but not on your mother's side. And then the rules changed, and when I got in there, I think I was the first one on the mother's side to play for Northern Ireland, which was, I mean, one of the proudest moments that I could ever have, but certainly for my mum and dad as well, you know. And so that was how it came around. You know, obviously coming from Wigan, born and bred in that area, but my ties lay with my mum, and so that's how it took its first leap forward. Yeah.
Fair enough. I mean, you know, for those of us who will never get anywhere near playing international football or decent football anyway, I mean, what's that like, putting on an international shirt? I mean, it's everybody's dream, I guess, isn't it?
Well, it's certainly my dream, and I'm sure a lot of footballers have done it. It is, you know, and yeah, I mean, the pride that you have when you actually pull the green on, and you think, you know, you're not representing, you know, a club that's got 3,000 or 4,000 fans now. You're representing a country. And I think that's what we did, and like I say, the pride that my mum and dad, you know, felt at that time was immense. It made me feel, you know, quite special at the time. And so when you go out there, you've got to give it all. And Billy Bingham, who was the manager, demanded that anyway. You know, I mean, somebody like Billy Bingham can take Northern Ireland to 2 World Cup finals. It's nothing short of a miracle. And he did it, and he did it through, you know, through organisation and quality team players as well. But that like I said, that work ethic that every team needs, and everybody pulled in the same direction. It was a really, really marvellous atmosphere to play in at that time. Unfortunately, when I was getting there, the team was sort of breaking up a bit. The World Cup team was breaking up a bit. Unfortunately, everybody got old at the same time, so to speak. You know, your Pat Jenningses and people like that. So that was a bit unfortunate. I couldn't play with some of the top ones that had been in the World Cup, but I played with some of them. You know, David McCreary and people like that. So in that respect, that helped my club game. You know, my domestic game, playing at that level is a different test again.
Yeah. Now, your managerial career, again, forgive me for skipping through, but we've got a lot to get through in the time available to us. But you're a player at Barnsley. Now, this is one of the great fairy tales of English football, isn't it? And Viv Anderson is manager. He brings you in as assistant player manager. And then you get the role as boss. Now, how big a step is that? I remember, we're going to get to your fairy tale season in the Premier League in a minute, when I saw you played down at Tiverton, if you remember, in the pre-season friendly, just before that season started. I was there, watched it. It was great to see that team down there. Tell us about that step up, because you're in the dressing room, you're one of the lads, and all of a sudden you're sort of slightly apart from the lads. How difficult is that to do?
Well, I've made a conscious effort anyway. When I was player coach with Viv, it's very difficult to go and change with the players in the dressing room when you're on the management side of it. So in that respect, I made a conscious effort then. Viv and I would go into a staff room, because when you walk into a dressing room and it goes quiet, you think, one of the staff's in here, be careful what you say. They're telling the stories and having a bit of fun, and then it just goes quiet. And I never wanted that to happen. That was not my style in that respect. So I started that very early in my first few weeks at Barnsley, and continued with doing that. So I didn't really find that too difficult, really, like going into the dressing room as a manager or a player manager as a player coach, because I'd already put the wheels in motion, so to speak.
Yeah. Now you do get the top job, and all right, you didn't get promotion straight away, obviously, but then eventually you did get promotion. It's a famous time in the club's history. You got the Barnsley poet making all sorts of poems about the club and all that kind of thing. How great was that season?
It was, just unbelievable, really. I think when we look back at the couple of seasons prior to that, and you look at all the problems that Barnsley as a town had at that time, with the unemployment and the pitch closing, etc. The unemployment was so high, and people were just getting really, really, really down. So really, an escape type of hour or two was at the football club. But then again, they had some problems there as well with the Taylor report. So everything was stacking up against them as not just a town, but as a football club as well, where the money had to be found to renovate the stadium to go to all seating, which wasn't cheap, and they didn't have money to spend in the first place. But somehow John Dennis and his board of directors, they found a way, and we started to get better and better. And we had a season where we were quite unlucky in the second season, and then the third season it just all came together. We signed some very, very good players. A lot of people wouldn't have heard of. We were given little tips, to look at these players and recommendations from certain managers that we respected, and we sort of put them all together, and it clicked, and it started to click as the season. Well, from the first game of the season, we went to West Brom, won 2-0 at West Brom, and had an unbelievable performance, which gave everybody a great deal of hope. Although it's very early in the season, but we just thought, if we could continue with this, and in that particular game, we started with about 7 or 8 new players. So to click straight away so quickly was great. And then the season just progressed as it did, and we started getting confidence, started getting good wins, and we kept in that top echelons of the echelons of the league. So great, yeah. We managed to see it all the line right to the last but one game.
Obviously, into the Premier League, it's a tough season for you. But again, Manchester United play a big part in that season in terms of your FA Cup run, don't they? And you seem to like beating Man United 1-0, don't you, on the big occasions? So do you remember that with a great deal of, I would imagine, affection, that result?
Well, we had a couple of good games. I mean, in the Cup, we went to Old Trafford in the Cup and drew at their place 1-1. Should have won that game, actually. We had a penalty appeal turned down in the last 2 minutes or 3 minutes of the game when one of our strikers called Andy Little was brought down by a certain Gary Neville, which is a stonewall penalty in front of the Stretford end. But the referee didn't feel he was going to be strong enough to give that penalty at that time in the game.
Whatever happened to Gary Neville? Do you know what happened to him? Or he seems to...
I didn't think he away somewhere. I'm not too sure where he is now. Yeah, but I mean, from that point of view, we thought, well, that maybe been our chance. But then going back to Walkwell, you know, we have packed house again, and again we started the game very well again, and a young boy called young Scotty, and he ended up with two great headers and 2 goals from 2 headers, and from that point of view, we went on and win the game 3-2 at home. So, you know, we got our own back a little bit in that respect to win and not come out of the cup. But unfortunately, we didn't do that in the league, and we go to Old Trafford and get banged 7. So I think they had the last laugh, really.
Let's move on to Sheffield Wednesday. And there is I hope you don't mind me using this word, but there's a really distressing bit in it where you are put under pressure by people who shouldn't have put you under pressure. And I think you know to the story of which I refer. This comes after the Paolo Di Canio incident, which again you go into great detail about in the book. But I think I read it and I kind of thought that, you know, I vaguely remembered it at the time, but the 4 MPs. Now, I got from the book that you're still quite bitter about that. Just tell us about that story.
Well, there's one thing I want to just put out there. I'm not bitter. I don't bitter about anything. I'm disappointed more than anything. Was how you know the fact that people using their authority as MPs could come out and try put pressure on a football club to disengage with the manager. You know, the biggest thing we were having at that time, you know, was trying to stay up. We'd lost players. We hadn't got replacements. We weren't as strong as we thought we might be. And every game that we went into was a tough game for us in the Premier League, as you can imagine. So when you get people coming in and using an excuse as being a fan to ask for the manager to be sacked, I mean, that's for me, that was stepping over the top. They weren't asking as a fan. They were using the position as an MP to try and influence. And that was the biggest disappointment from my point of view. And it's in the book, you know, I've not held back in it. You know, it's the truth of what happened. And it's my feelings at that time, because I didn't put it out there before. You know, I was asked many, many times what happened. And of all the football clubs that I've been to, I've never one that walk away and start kissing and telling and you know, and you know, wanted to give a bad influence back to the club again, or bad words back to the club again. I'm not like that. But you know, I've waited a long time really to let people and express how I felt at that time.
In fact, you received an apology from 10 Downing Street, did you not?
I did, yes. Yes, we had a phone call, yeah, and you know, a certain guy came on the phone, which you'll find out in the book who it is, and apologised and just said, you know, this will stop now. It won't happen anymore. And lo and behold, it did stop. But the damage was done for me, you know, in that respect. You know, after that, you've got to win games. That's what it's all about, is winning games. I understand that, and as a fan, I understand that the fans can have their opinion and listen to, but not as 4 MPs coming together in that particular instance. I thought that was over the top.
Yeah, I mean, do you want to comment on the Paolo Di Canio thing, or do you just want to leave it? It's all in the book there.
No, it's just quite. It's in the book itself. It explains. You know, I've got a lot of respect for Paolo. What a great player he was. You know, but the situation that developed in the time we were sending off was very, very stressful for the full football club and for Paolo himself. You know, not just us. He wasn't allowed to play for 11 games. Yeah, there's lots of little things that go on in there that's worth a little read.
Yeah, I would say so. Those who don't remember it, of course, it's the Paul Alcock sort of falling over rather theatrically monument. I think we all remember that. If we can move on to your time at Swindon, then you've been at Hartlepool, which I think you quite enjoyed, didn't you? But it ended with, you know, it's often said, isn't it? There are 2 ways a manager leaves a football club: either resign or get the sack, or there's another way in which you get promotion, as it were. So I guess that's true, doesn't it? I mean, do you go into a job thinking, I am going to be here for life, or I'm not going to be here? I always remember talking to the great Ken Furphy, who I got to know very well. He was manager of Watford, Blackburn Rovers, New York Cosmos, etc. And at the time, George Graham was doing remarkably well at Arsenal, and I said to him, he's got a job for life there. And Ken Furphy said, nobody's got a job for life as a football manager. And that's fair to say, isn't it?
Well, Ken's got it spot on. Yes, it's very true. I mean, I think, we never look too far from the next game. That's what we do, and you win the next game, you think, right, that hopefully keeps me in job for another week. And that's how you've got to look at it. It's so short term in that respect. When you're one of the big managers and you've signed a 8-9 year contract and you're winning things week in, week out, that's different. You can plan further ahead. It's a little bit more stable in that respect. But when you're inside the Premier League in particular, it's a cruel job in fairness. And I think we've seen in the Championship this year already, about 8-9 sackings, something like that, in the Championship alone. So that's how precarious the job is at the moment in time. But so you never get in front of yourself. We always prepare ourselves for the next game and take it after that.
Yeah, I see Doncaster have party company with their manager today, so another one's gone, as it were. Right, Swindon then comes. You get appointed at a strange time if you don't. Forgive me for saying that, but it's Boxing Day. There you are having Christmas, and then all of a sudden you get a call, I think, from Andrew Fitton. Is that right?
I did, yeah. It was very much out of the blue. I just said, will you come and have a chat, and which I did. I think Andrew will say himself, and I've got a lot of respect for Andrew, that he maybe had about 30 or 40 candidates for the job, which was not surprising because it was a good job, so in that respect, I was very, very surprised to get the call, particularly after we left, Hartlepool after about a week or so. So I just got in the car and I went down to meet Andrew. Yeah.
What did you know about Swindon? I mean, football's a very insular game, isn't it? You must know people who work at football clubs, who play for football clubs. Did you know a lot about the town?
Well, only really that if playing against them and going down there and playing and managing down there. Yeah, that's I didn't really know anything about the inside workings of the football club, which you only find out when you actually go down there. But what you felt as well, it was a real footballing town, and very passionate supporters. You had a great stadium, always had a great pitch to play football on, and the teams that generally went out there playing for Swindon or representing Swindon were good players, and they always had good teams down there. So taking that into account, there was and that obviously being in the Premier League at one stage, was always going to be a big ask again to get there. But it was something that you always feel you can do. You always feel you can go into a football club and get them back to the to the positions that the fans would expect them to be at.
Your first task was to keep them up. That's true to say, isn't it?
Yeah, it was. Yeah. I think we were having a bit of a problem at the time. So we had to go in and get some results quickly. And basically what most times I've been to football clubs, that's been the case anyway. Very rarely go into a team that's top of the division, that's flying away with it. So you've got to go in and you've got to make you've got to try and make a difference straight away. And it's organisation straight away. And unfortunately at that time, Swindon were losing goals. So the first thing you've got to do is you've just got to show the defence up and make yourself difficult to be beaten and give yourself a chance to win a game. And that's all we did. I'm saying all we did. There's a lot of work that went into that, but that is ultimately what the problem was. And we managed to do that, and we got a few good results. And thankfully, we finished about, I think, 14th or 15th at the end of the season. So, we got away with it very well in that time. They worked hard, the players to get us back in, keep us in the league. Yeah.
Of course, the expectations rise then, and I think your next target was to get them into the playoffs, wasn't it?
Well, it was. I sat down with Andrew, and we sat. We've done all right. We had one or two players, that we thought would be okay. I liked a few players. So there's going to be changes. We knew that's always the case. But we sat down and we analysed everything. And by the end of the pre-season, when we're about to start the season, Andrew said to us, Dan, I'd like to get into the playoffs. And from my point of view, I said, so would I, Andrew. You're not on your own there, by the way, but it's going to be tough. And he understood the the magnitude of what he was saying. But I'd rather have that than somebody says I want to stay in the division again. You'd rather have that challenge where people are challenging you. And so we did that. We said, yeah. I said, that's great. And thankfully, we brought some players in that helped us to achieve that. So the turnaround from really being staving off relegation year before to finishing 5th in League One was fantastic. So great turnaround, and you got to praise the players for that.
I remember opening day of the following season. You'll remember it very well. Gillingham away. It was a 12 o'clock kickoff, if I remember rightly, and I was in the away end. And I can remember. I'll always remember this. You sort of walked towards us, and you knew that 5-0 wasn't acceptable on the opening day, but also, it was a strange day because Norwich got beat 7-1 by Colchester, if you remember rightly, on that day. And they went on to win the championship. So, as you say, opening days. You can't judge everything on opening day, can you?
Well, you can't, no. And we see so in every division, we see so many strange results in that first 4, 5, 6 games. You think, will that have happened at the back end of the season? It's arguably it wouldn't. A lot of teams finding their feet. A lot of players coming in, new players going into each club. If you hit the ground running and everything gets off great, that's a big bonus. But when you get banged 5-0, it's at Gillingham. Then particularly after just missing out on relegation the season before, then obviously people are going to look at it and raise their eyebrows and think, here we go again. We've got another tough season in front of us. And you can't argue for feeling that way.
But then you went on a good run because I think you won 4-1 at MK Dons in the League Cup the following day, or 4-2, and things started to click.
Well, yeah, we did. It took it was a little bit slow at first, but we started to gather momentum. Yeah, and I think that once the players have got to know each other's game, which is very important, and obviously the type of football that we wanted to play, we wanted that to exceed as well. But more importantly, we have to get results. And playing great football is I'm not saying it's no good, but it doesn't. It's got to go alongside a good result as well, and that's what we were trying to achieve. And slowly but surely during the season, we started to be able to put them both together. And I'd like to think, the fans were enjoying the football as well.
Well, it certainly were. It's one of the best seasons I can remember as a Swindon fan. Of course, you had a certain player come in as well called Charlie Austin. I mean, what an extraordinary period at the club he had. And did you think he would reach the level that he reached?
I've been asked this question about Charlie and many other players that we've managed to bring through in football clubs up and down the country. And no, you don't think they're going to do that. And that's an honest, it's an honest statement, really. You hope they will, and you think that if you carry on with the hard work and understanding, and go to good clubs and etc., then they will do. But you just never know with football. It's a strange thing. You could get injured the next day. Who knows? But with Charlie had this knack, and he had this knack of just being in the right place at the right time. It's not luck. It's between your ears. He has this sixth sense that he knew where the ball would drop. He knew how to get on the end of things. He knew the players that were going to deliver balls into the box and what type of ball they'd be, and he ultimately would get on the end of them. And that was when he was playing for Poole, and that's what we liked when we saw him. When I went down there, I thought, he gets in great areas. Maybe at Poole they didn't deliver the ball that he was expecting it to be delivered consistently, but once he got into the Football League, then that changed, and that's why he got such a high goal scoring credits towards him. He's a real fox in the box in that respect. Not the most flight-footed of players, as he'll not disrespect me saying that, but he was tough and he was brave, and he wasn't scared of missing. That was a great asset that Charlie had.
Yeah, another player I always thought was influential on that season was John Paul McGovern, who had a terrific season, didn't he?
He did. I mean, JP could put a ball on a sixpence for you. He'd under pressure as well. He always knew where his strikers were. He knew where his wide men were if it wasn't him. And he could dictate the state of play almost, solo really. JP was a very ball player. There's no doubt about that. And he did contribute to a lot of the goals our striker scored that season.
Two highlights, of course, everybody will remember. 3-0 at home against Leeds, 3-0 away against Leeds. And I always remember this. After every game, you very kindly came out and did interviews with people like me. But on those occasions, you sent out Peter Shirliffe. And I always wondered why. I mean, they were tremendous results, but I just wondered why you did that. Was to share the sort of credit around, or what was that about?
Well, it has to be. I think, that we're a team, and I think, that sometimes the boys at the side of you don't get the credit that they deserve as well. So when we go and have the 2 results like we did in particular, they weren't the only times I sent them out. We said to measure 1-0 against, I don't know, when we drew a bit of Cheltenham, 1-1 and things like that. So, I do think that, we overlook some of the staff at society. They're so important to us, and I just felt on that day, I just said, take your bow, because they were 2 fantastic results, and unfortunately, to our detriment later on, were Billy Paynes went to them and scored against them, which was quite ironic that he leaves us and goes to them, which was not, it wasn't a surprise really at the time. But saying that, that's one of the reasons that Peter went out there. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I did think that was the reason why. They were fabulous results, and nobody who were there will ever forget them. They were just fantastic. But it kind of, and at that point, you had a great Easter, because I think you won on the Easter Monday as well. But then the results still slipped. Can you understand why they slipped? Because you were looking like automatic promotion certs at that point.
Well, we were, yeah. No, listen, sometimes you can't explain it. I mean, you think that 1 or 2 players might be getting a bit tight, getting a bit uptight in terms of the play and not playing as fluently as you can. Little injuries don't help. I think when you're changing the team a little bit than you need to do, then that doesn't help at all. But no, sometimes you really can't put your finger on it. It's just down to a mental state sometimes. And although we try and calm players down and give them the chance to not get carried away with anything, not get too uptight because of the situation, and they're not expected to do anything anyway. But you still can't stop you can't stop players from looking at the league table and what's needed, and what if we win this game, and if we lose the next one, and looking too far in front of themselves again. And maybe that was one of the cases.
You'll see behind me there's a certain blue shirt, which you might remember from, eventually you get into the playoffs, 2-1 at home at Charlton on the Friday, a return in South London on the Monday. You'll know that shirt, I've no doubt. There's a lovely moment in the book where you describe a conversation about Stephen Darby, who we wish well, of course. My goodness, if ever a player comes in on loan and spends about 3 months there and makes such an impact as he did, that was an incredible tale, wasn't it? Well,
it was, and as I said, I explained in the book about the background of Stephen, and a fantastic professional footballer. One that if any young boy was coming through a football club now, I'd attach him to Stephen Darby, make him stay with him all day long, every day. Because he's learning such a great deal, and he's such a humble young boy as well. And now he's got his own battles as well to fight, which is so sad, for such a young boy. And but what a kid, what a great lad to have around, and I'm sure that all the players that he came across or came into contact with will say the same.
Yeah, he got the iconic penalty, of course, and there's that great picture of him and Phil Smith, who you also talk about in the book, coming in on that crucial away leg when David Lucas got injured, performed miraculously, and of course in the penalty shootout, we went through to Wembley. Now, Millwall, you played at Millwall a couple of weeks before, lost at Millwall, but I guess the one moment everybody remembers is the bobble, and I guess you remember that too because it's so close. I know Charlie Austin, we've talked to about it before. I mean, he still probably has nightmares about it now. How do you feel about the bobble?
Well, we've been complaining about the pitch, and not just us, but teams before us have complained about the pitch and the state of it, and how many games are on there, and this, that, and the other. And he was getting chewed up all the time, and it wasn't taking as much care of it should have been. And it only goes to prove that when the next games are on, when the championship ones, they relay the turf, shortly after. So, on there was listen. It could have happened to anybody. That's not really the reason why we lost the game, you know. But it was the reason why we didn't score in that particular instance, and I think it was so unfortunate because everybody had put the house on the fact that Charlie Austin going through on goal, you know, was just a keeper to beat. It was a foregone conclusion that ball would be in the back of the net, and when he hit his shin, you know, we just astounded, you know, and nothing from that respect, you know, was down to any personal miscontrol or anything. So yeah, it was just a circumstance. Is it written in the stars? I don't know, but we didn't play as well as we could do at that respect. So if you know, if push comes to shove, you can make any excuse, but really, you know, throughout the game we didn't create as many chances as we'd like to have created, and that being the best one, or could have been the best one for us to keep in the game or even go in front.
Yeah, I was doing the commentary with Phil King that day, and we both used that very phrase. We'd have put your money or your house on that moment of it nestling in the net. In fact, we all thought it was going to nestle in the net, didn't we? But for obvious reasons, it didn't. Sadly, then no promotion that time. This will point to that team sort of breaking up. This is from Peter. He says, sorry to start on a negative note, as it's great to hear from Danny, but would he consider the departure of Gordon Greer to be the catalyst for the season that followed? He used a disastrous season that followed. I know you've got a different view on the fact that, you know, had it all worked out, you would have kept them up. But he was a huge character. Of course, he got sent off at Charlton in that semi-final. And he was a big miss, wasn't he?
Without a doubt. There's no, I would never say anything different than that as well. He was one of the major pluses from my time at the City Ground. And I think from that point of view, with him going in and going to Brighton, which, you know, you can't blame players sometimes. It's a step up. He'd had, you know, a fantastic season a bit with us, and from his loan period from Doncaster. So I think from that point of view, you know, to get stepped up again to go to, I think it was to Brighton at the time. You know, you couldn't say no, don't go. But it was a big miss for us, and I think when you get players, you know, of that standard that are leaving the club or not available to you the next season, you know, it's very difficult to replace quality players like that. You know, even the top players, you know, if the Premier League teams, if your goal scorers are going, your top goal scorers, you take, you know, players out of your team, you know, even the top teams, you know, will have a problem, will have a difficulty replacing them. Your Cities and your Liverpool maybe not so much, but certainly underneath those they will. And we were no different with the best players that we had. You know, to replace somebody like Gordon, you know, everybody talks about the players nowadays and stepping out and playing football from the back. Gordon was doing that years ago with us. You know, it was nothing unusual. He was very, very good at it, and we encouraged that all the time. You know, he could have been a midfield player playing in there. You know, and as a player, he gave us a big confidence to go and play like we did to play at certain times. So yes, it was a big miss. Yeah,
I guess authority figures in the dressing room are what you want, isn't it, as a manager? And I guess he was. That's a big part of it, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, the dressing room was very good and experienced as well. You know, bearing in mind we got like John Douglas in there, and then after that there was David Prutton, people like that. Little Matt Ritchie was maybe not so much of an experienced one, but still good in the dressing room. So that was good. And then, you know, unfortunately losing players of that ilk, you know, like I say, I'll repeat myself again, it's very difficult to replace them. And we're not flush with money. We're not going out to replace them with money. That money is targeted to keep the club going and keep it afloat. You know, it's not there to be all spent on new players. So, you know, we have to respect that. I have to understand that. And we certainly do in the management side of it. You know, when you're in that position, you know, you can't go spitting your dummy out and go to the chair and say, this is not good, we can't replace them, blah, blah, blah. You just got to get on with what you can and do the best you can with what you've got.
Yeah, you mentioned, of course, Billy Painter had gone off to Leeds after that.
Yeah,
that season, which is another big miss because goals, you know, they were both scoring for fun, weren't they? Charlie Austin and Billy Painter. So, yeah, big misses. The second season, of course, or the next season, it was a difficult season, wasn't it? You've mentioned the fact that you've players and you're trying to rebuild. There was a rumour you were after Matt Taylor from Exeter. Did that happen or not happen?
We were after quite a few players at that time, if I'm quite honest. But to get hold of them is very difficult. As I said to you before, do you want the players want to come to a club that's maybe in the same position where we're coming from? Maybe they feel that they've got something a bit bigger in the pipeline. There's all sorts of reasons why we find it difficult to bring players in, and it's not necessarily about the money at times, But if players are having a good season, they're going to attract attention. That's for sure. If their agent is telling them that there's bigger clubs and better clubs in there, they're going to hang fire. So we have lots of challenges in that respect, trying to get the acquired quality of players, and there will no need to have a challenge again.
Yeah, Charlie went off to Burnley, of course, and I remember rightly, he missed a penalty in his last game against Tranmere, didn't he, in a goalless draw, which would have been a fairy tale finish if he'd put that penalty away. But points were difficult to come by. What is your take on why that struggle happened? Why do you think that was? I mean, obviously you pointed to the loss of players. You brought in the likes of David Ball, Thomas De Zerbi, people like that. But what is your take on that season?
Well, you just hit the nail on the head. It's replacing players. It's the hardest thing to do. And when you've had a great season like you did, the expectation levels right up there again to expect you to even get one better, because mine was, and I'm sure the fans was. We didn't want to be in a dogfight again. But again, the players that we're bringing in have not got the experience of the ones that's left. So you're starting from not from scratch, but not far from scratch again. And so I think in that area, there's not really a great other excuse, if you want, from getting results that we did. You just have to start from the bottom again, and you have to hopefully scratch your way to the top and keep your players again. And if you've got good players, it's more likely that they'll get nicked as they did when we were there at that time. Thomas De Zerbi and people like that, and Bawley, they had no experience very little experience in the Football League. But they were all we could get at the time. That were people that we could afford to bring in, which is never easy, I would have loved to. I'm sure the chairman and the board of directors would have loved to have gone out and got some top names in there, but it wasn't feasible.
So let's come to the very difficult time when a decision is made. Rich has sent in this thing which says, "What happened to you at Swindon Town? Love your new book, which I'm going to get." You do talk about the moment when the club decides to part company with you, and you had an experience a bit earlier on in your career, I think at Sheffield Wednesday, when you were given two envelopes. One said about resigning, one said you got the sack. What is the truth? I mean, you say it in the book. I don't know if you want to say it now, but it was said that you'd resigned. Is that the case?
No.
So it was the other option.
Well, it was, and you have to remember as well with the chairman and I, we got on quite well, in fairness. I liked him quite a lot, and we'd had a very grown up, if you like, conversation, and what had happened in that respect, he just said, Dan, I just think, it's better we try and get somebody in and try and change these running results that we're having. Fully understand. I'd have no argument in that, and I'd love that to happen to every manager. At least you sit down with in a grown up situation, rather than a backbiting thing that's happening or just being sacked and they put a statement out on your website and that's it. Sit down and talk about things, what's happened, and that's what we did. And I think from that point of view, I've always said is that I'll just put out there that. You've resigned, and we'll try and move on from there with as least possibly can. So I said, listen, you can do what you want, but ultimately I've been sacked. But if you want to word it the other way, that's entirely up to you. I don't mind. Whichever smooths the transition over for the next one to come in. I'm quite happy with that, because we'd had some good times at the club as well, and as I said at the time, there was no pressure put on me at all from anybody. I mean, when we got to the playoffs, and we lost out in the playoffs in the final, all of a sudden the chairman just said to me then, he said, Dan, he says, you've achieved everything I asked you to achieve. And I thought that was massive from a chairman, not to come in and say, we should have won this game because of this, that and the other. He given us a task in the beginning of the season to try and achieve, and we did. And he was more than grateful for that. So I fully respect that. And so when it came to that side of, the other side of it, when we have to part company, it was a very, very grown up conversation, and that's how we parted ways.
Yeah. I just wanted to hear, I was always grateful that you always came out and talked after a game, and I always respected that, because, I just thought you came across as a decent, honest chap, and you do now. And I always appreciated the fact that you came out and talked. So thank you very much. I just wanted to put that in. This is from Paddy. Please pass on my thanks to Danny for his time at Swindon. A top fella, never given enough credit for his time here. My son-in-law ordered me a copy of Danny's new book that came on Saturday, as did mine. They must have done a delivery on Saturday all over the place. So obviously you leave Swindon, and if I remember right, as it always happens, you never get a chance to say goodbye to people, do you? That's always a big factor in football management.
Well, yes, it's very true. You don't, and it's never an ideal, situation when you get in the sack, and it's generally when the players know the football club as well. Depending, the circumstances where you've been sacked. But no, it is difficult. But you come across one or two of them afterwards, and phone calls, and you end up having a talk with one or two of the players. So that, but it's just the hardest part when you're saying goodbye. It's never easy, because you put in a lot of time and effort into each other. And don't get me wrong, I don't think it's an easy time for chairman either. I mean, from Andrew's point of view, from the chairman's, Andrew Finn's point of vio, I don't think it was an easy decision for him to make. But he had to make it, and what he felt was for the good of the club, and I respect that. No worries. But it is hard, to say goodbye, and then you've got all your staff as well. You've got the people that you work in the office with, blah blah blah. It's never easy to go away without saying goodbye, and when you go back again, you hope that when you go back, it's in a bit of a lighter mood, and you're going from another club, or you're going visiting as well. You can go and say hello to people. Yeah,
well, you'd be welcome at the County Ground anytime. You know that. What do you say to people who might say, well, in that season, there were cliques arriving in the dressing room? What would you say to people who, because obviously they're not inside the dressing room, they don't know, but there are, people who say that happened. Is that true or not?
Well, if people outside the club know better than I do, then it's up to them to keep on, spreading rumours. Listen, we had a great dressing room. You don't all of a sudden have a great dressing room than a poor one. So we've got strong characters in there. I've told you before, it's great. It's great when you have strong characters, and you've got to come to, if you're a young boy and you're timid, you're soon brought out of your shell. You have to be. You're in a man's game, and you've got to go out there and you've got to go and perform. You can't go out there like a little soft, quiet little mouse and expect not to be bullied. So you have to toughen up in football, and you have to toughen up in that dressing room, because it's a hard environment. It's not easy, and the demands that's in the dressing rooms are very high. So to say there was a clique, I would suggest that's just hearsay. What I will suggest, there is a tough dressing room, and you had to come to the party really, if you weren't going to be in there and sit in a corner on your own and not be able to speak.
Fair enough. Obviously, you went on to manage other clubs afterwards, but Malcolm asked this question: what is Danny doing these days? Is he still involved with football? What are you actually doing? Are you retired? What are you doing?
I think I'm retired from a touchline. Yeah, I do a little bit of consultancy work with a company in London, which is at our leisure really. I do a little bit with the LMA, but apart from that, no. I go watching games. I watch lots of games, and I sit in the stand like a fan and enjoy myself, a neutral fan that is, and I just watch the game from there, and I enjoy every minute of it, and under no pressure. Feeling the pressure for the boys though, on the touchline, and reminiscing how tough it is, and to be a manager of a football club, and then you also have the frustrations of the fans all around you, But it's great to watch the games, but I've got no ulterior motive to come back in again.
Yeah. Do you look at a manager and say, "Oh, he shouldn't have made that substitution," or you must still think like a manager when you're watching a game, do you, or not?
No, I don't, because I know what's going through the manager's mind at that time is what he thinks is best for the team, and that's the first and the priority of any manager. The team comes first. If he's doing it, and people think he's having a good game, but he's doing it for another reason, or for a tactical ploy, whatever it may be, then he's doing it for the right reasons. You never make a decision for the wrong reason. You never make a decision to lose a game. You never make a decision for somebody to come on who can't play. You know, you've always got the team in your mind, and so no, when I'm in the stands, I try and work out the reason why they're doing it. Now, whether you agree with that, that's a different matter. But you know that he's doing it for the best of the team. He's not doing it just for the sake of doing it.
Well, thank you very much for your time. And it is a fantastic read, and I'm going to try and finish it now. I don't have to rush through it, but it is a fantastic read. And did you enjoy putting it together?
I did, yeah. I mean, and Matthew Mann, the guy who is the ghostwriter there, he's been absolutely brilliant with me. And he was one and another associate of himself called Barry Pierpoint, are the ones who convinced me really to put my football career in a book, and convinced me really it's for the family more than anything. It's just a little bit of a legacy to leave to the grandkids, because all they see is me in a pair of shorts and a shirt or a shirt and tie on a touchline. They don't know really what's gone on. So really that's why it's taken up so much time in the recent year or so. But what I've really, really enjoyed doing, and the guys are there to thank more than anything.
Well, it's a really great read. It's Danny Wilson, I Get Knocked Down. It's available now. It's got a forward by Viv Anderson with Matthew Mann, so I thoroughly recommend it. Danny Wilson, thank you so much. It's been great talking to you again. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks, Vic.
Thanks very much, Danny, from the Official Supporters Club. We're privileged to have you on today. It's been brilliant. So, and thank you to Matthew for sorting it all out for us as well. So, brilliant. So thank you for everybody who actually managed to watch this live. But as we said, it is recorded, so we'll put it on the YouTube and Facebook and Twitter that anybody can watch afterwards. Okay, so we will be back next Monday for an On the Panel, Monday night panel. And then on the following week, we have Michael Doughty on the sofa. So get that one in your diary. That's 31st of October, so Halloween. So so we'll have Michael Doughty on then. So finally, thank you very much, Danny. Brilliant, and hope to see you soon. So,
thank you.
Okay, everybody, goodbye.